Well, I'm proud of myself for figuring out how to do it, for like finding the courage to value myself above all of the fear and need for acceptance and all of those things.
Yeah.
But it has been really painful and scary because the reality is that there's been a couple of responses. One of them is that people haven't responded the way I wish they would. And those relationships are now very, very distant and complicated. And then there are the ones who wanted a relationship with me, but they wanted me to explain all of it and make it make sense to them and help them understand the need for the boundary, and then they could respect the boundary. And that was one of my boundaries, though, is that I'm not going to explain everything to everybody. Like, I get to make my choices for me, for my reasons.
Yes.
And so that was really difficult because the toll that it took on me in trying to explain and help everybody accept and understand was just eating me alive.
Yeah. It's exhausting.
Yeah. And what that did was I started carrying the weight of all of their inner struggle in trying to understand the changes in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I got to a point where I did have to just let go of that and let everything be what it is. But you also find out what your relationships are really made of.
Right. You know, I find this to be true, that you truly can never explain it enough. Like, that person may be like, look, I just need to understand. But you could say all of the words in the dictionary and then some more. And it's not going to, like, now it makes complete sense to me.
Right.
And I'm fine with everything. You're like, it's just not possible. The people that I feel like have championed me, and maybe true for you too, the most have been the ones that are like, girl, you don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
Like, if you're happy, I'm happy. Done. I'm still your friend. It's the people that are like, I need to understand this. It's not something that's explainable. It really isn't. It's, you know, life is something that we're living. It's something we're experiencing every single moment. You know, we're not asking everybody else to break down every moment of their life. Hell, I don't even want to hear it, even if they did want to explain it.
It's like, so funny when we think we should have to do all the explaining, but then when you turn it around and they wouldn't all do all the explaining for us. Or for me. So.
Yep. It's like what were you saying the other day? It was in I think it was an audiobook that you were listening to. Might have been a podcast about, you know, nobody asked, or the heterosexual people don't have to walk. It was that
Ace book that we were listening to.
What were they saying?
They were saying, like, everybody wants us to explain, sorry about the sunglasses on and off, but the sun just came back out. They were saying, like, everybody wants us to explain how we figured out that we're gay, or why we're lesbians, why we're bisexuals, why our gender identity, all this stuff. Nobody expects all the heteronormative people to walk around explaining why they're male and why they're heterosexual.
That's right.
Nobody
expects that.
No.
Nobody asks them. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, suddenly, if you're not going to fit in the mainstream or what people
the expectations.
Say is the norm, then they all have the right to question you. Right. And, you know, I think that goes with life's choices too. When you create your own life and you decide to not do what everybody has expected you to do, it's like, it's alarming to everybody.
It is.
And then they feel like they need to understand. But if you were doing stuff that they were comfortable with and that they felt like you should do, they wouldn't be questioning it.
Right.
You know, so it's that
difference between the need to understand and the willingness to accept.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to understand in order to accept. And that's where I've had to lay my boundary, you know, for the most part, is there's no need for you to understand in order for you to accept.
Yeah.
And that
really,
frees
really
me up
good.
from having to explain it all to everybody.
Yes. Yeah. You know, when it comes to boundaries, you know, I've been thinking about, like, for me with my family, laying boundaries took me a while. And honestly, I don't think you ever arrive. I think it's always this evolutional process, because people change and grow and evolve, and some people who may not have accepted your boundaries or have rejected you may come around later on, you know. And so, like, it's never this set thing, but it is, for me, the understanding that I have control of who gets to be in my life and who doesn't get to be in my life.
Right.
And the hard thing for me with setting boundaries was that, like, I knew pretty deep that if I was to really be honest with myself about what I needed and what was honoring to me, I was going to lose a lot. Mm-hmm. And I was going to be misunderstood like hell. Mm-hmm. And people would be hurt. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when it comes to, like, our friends or our family even more, like, it's just damn hard. There's no easy way to do it.
No.
And for me, it was like finally coming to a place where I was like, I have these strong boundaries because, you know, in my situation, it was, you know, that I could put my family in danger and hold on to these relationships, or I could set some firm boundaries and probably lose most of them. Right. So it's just coming to a place of acceptance of being like, okay, I'm ready. Like, it's not going to be fun. It's going to feel like hell. And it's probably not going to turn out great. But it was also like, as much as it was hard, it was relieving to me. It's really relieving because as much as we don't want to lose people, to hang on to relationships that are could be dangerous or toxic or draining even is worse.
It is.
It's worse.
But you don't realize it until you get on the other side and see what it feels like to not be living like
Yes.
that.
And I think, and probably both of our situations in different ways, like we had lived our whole life boundaryless and coping with this way of living where you do everything for everybody and you make sure everybody's taken care of and you don't value yourself. So you don't understand what it feels like to value yourself until you start realizing to step away from that and be like, oh my gosh, like for you, like you had so many headaches all the time and you had reflux all the time. Like, I think about those things. Your body was screaming help.
It was. And I didn't even know why. Because even my doctor, I went to see her. I was on reflux medicine. I was still having such horrible reflux. And she's like, well, what are you eating? We went through my whole diet. And she said, it's got to be stress. Like, what is it that's eating at you in that respect? And I looked at her and said, I have no idea. I feel fine.
Wow.
I don't know why. But the reality was I had lived in that dynamic for so long. That was my normal. I couldn't tell any different.
Yes.
Until I made changes in my life.
Yes.
And I stopped having those things.
Yes.
And then I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like.
Well, it's like when you would talk to me about your marriage with your ex-husband and just be like having conversations, just chatting. And I was like, you know how messed up that is? You're like, wait, what? Because that was your norm.
Right.
You know, so it's like, yeah, for me, when I tell you stories about the cult I grew up in, you're like, are you fucking serious? That is bizarre. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this funny thing. Last week, I don't know what brought it up. Oh, there was music playing, and I was like jumping around the house, and then all of a sudden, I was like, jumping in the river. And Jennifer looked at me. I said, do you want to jump in the river? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, so, I don't know, everybody hear that helicopter? Hi, helicopter. Anyways, is that my son? That is some weird person walking through my field. Do you know who that is? Tanea, who is that?
He's looking for his drone.
I thought my daughter said, looking for a job. It's fine. Daddy knows.
Okay, Dad knows.
Daddy knows he's in there. There's some person walking around through our pasture anyways. He's looking for a drone. Okay. I'm like, there are jobs here. They don't pay. There's a lot of poop out there to scoop, though. You can get
You're going to walk through the pasture, grab a shovel.
Grab a pitchfork. Sorry.
Anyway,
jumping in the river. And so I just told Jennifer, I was like, yeah, there was this one point where, like, one of the leader's wives I don't know why she decided this, but she had this ribbon ring. And this is when we were wearing, like, head coverings.
It's a figurative river, by the way.
Yes. So, like, all homemade dresses, head coverings. We made these ribbon rings and scarves that we danced with. And, you know, all the music that we played was all original. Like, we didn't listen to any worldly music. Even Christian music was terrible because it wasn't written by us. And we were the elite. So anyways, we would have these gatherings in a circle, all circled up with chairs. And then this one lady, that was the leader's wife, she was, okay, whatever. Anyway, she stood up on a chair and she's like, you know what? You can't just wade into the river of God. You have to jump all the way in with your whole heart. And so she jumped off the chair and onto the ground. It was like, woo, jump, and then waving. And then she ran around the circle and started waving a ribbon ring over everyone's head, saying, jump in the river, jump. So then everybody got on chairs and started jumping off their chairs. And
Into the river.
And I'm telling the story to Jennifer, and she's like, oh my God. What is wrong with you guys?
It's like, did you guys ever do that? No. As a matter of fact, we never, ever did that.
And I was like telling the story, realizing, oh, wow, that is really weird. Why were we all just jumping off of these
and you were
stupid chairs?
And
Oh, yeah. We were like, praise the Lord. It was like so spiritual. The experience was amazing. And we were all just like, but then like, it's just these weird things, like that was my norm.
Right.
And so you grow up with that, and then you realize how fucked up things were.
Yeah.
And it's like even that whole thing with boundaries, like how fucked up is it that we live most of our life, hopefully not most of our life. Goodbye, everybody, I'm fixing to die. No, half of our life, right?
Most of your life up until this point.
Yes. And find out that, like, we've been living not feeling valuable enough to say no to people.
Well, you were disciplined for saying no.
Oh, well, absolutely, yeah. It was all about obedience to me.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. Like, that was out of the fucking question. But, it seems simple. And that's why the thing, I'm like, with boundaries, like, yes, it's this important thing, and it's not really complicated, but because it's very personal. So everyone's situation is different, but it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy at all. It's so difficult. And it's this constant, like, reinforcing. It's not like you say it one time, and because people push. They'll keep showing back up and pushing, and they'll come from different angles where they sound nicer now. And that's when it gets tricky. They come back, well, I really care about you. That's why I want to understand.
And you feel like such a horrible person.
Yes.
Such a mean person.
Yes.
I know that, like, my family that I have started having boundaries with, they're like, you are so angry at me all the time, and I just don't understand. You've always been so kind and so loving. And so they feel rejected, like I've turned into a totally different person, that I'm angry at them. And really, I don't think they would receive that as that from other people, but I set the expectation for a really long time that the way I show you that I love you is by not having boundaries.
Exactly.
And so it feels like the opposite of love now that I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that either. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to do this.
Yes.
And so it doesn't feel like love coming from me because that's not how I've chosen to show them love up to this point.
And and that's so much what's kind of ingrained into us in different ways growing up. But, like, how sad is it to live in a world where people can't, be respected for the things they want or don't want? Like, the thing that I find amazing about boundaries is implementing them into my own life suddenly gave me this really big respect and ability to be able to see other people that I thought maybe were bitchy and selfish and all the other things that we're taught come with this type of way of being. If you stand up for yourself and if you won't do certain things, like you're selfish, you're bitchy, like I started realizing, no, these people they know what they want, they know what they don't want. They're smart. They're smart and they're brave. And so it's like, learning to rewire my brain, like that's not selfish and it's not bitchy. It's smart and it's knowing your value. It's like not letting somebody hire you for a penny.
And it actually brings more peace into their lives.
Yes.
Because they're not constantly wrestling with and weighing every request and every decision and every expectation.
Right.
Because they're like, nope, these are going to be my boundaries. And if it doesn't fit in that, I just say no.
Well, and here's the thing. Like those of us that didn't have boundaries for so long, maybe we looked nicer and kinder. But the truth is, how do we feel inside? How did it feel inside when you had to constantly, take care of other people and value them, but you couldn't value yourself? It felt horrible.
Yeah.
And I remember being bitter and angry. Being bitter and angry inside, but I could never show it.
Right.
I could never acknowledge it. I could never tell anybody that's
You
how I
just
truly felt.
swallow it.
You just, yes, because, I like for me, it was this the whole wiring of, be the doormat, be the person that everybody walks on, but I never liked it. It never felt good to me. It never felt honoring to me. It was never something I did because I was like, oh my God, this is my dream come true. It was not that. It was
Right.
what I felt like I was supposed to do. But all
Yeah.
around, I was angry and dying inside and feeling just like a horrible person. Like no matter how much I'm the doormat and just keep bowing lower and lower and lower, I just never feel good. But I was always told, the more you do it, the more you'll feel better. Like God
Right.
will provide this. It just never came. And then I learned to stand up for myself and say, you know what? Even though everyone's going to misunderstand this probably, and it's going to feel really terrible to do it,